don't believe all the anecdotal talk that banks don't want to lend money to businesses of diversity.
Hey, it's Obi Chikuma of Space and Equity. We're all about increasing assets and creating new space. Here today with a new but a good friend, Colin Davis, is Senior Vice President of Frost Bank. He's in the middle market commercial space. Oftentimes, Colin, not a lot of people that look like us know what you do and how you do it. So tell us, how did it get started for you banking wise and getting to the point where you're a middle market commercial relationship manager?
Obi, thanks. First of all, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity and the time, and great question. It's kind of funny. It all happened a little bit by accident, to be honest with you. I'm originally from upstate New York, from Niagara Falls, Buffalo. And it's so funny. I was actually a junior in college in my third year, and I was actually a finance and accounting major, and I was working at Bob Evans as a busboy,
Wow.
right? Because that was the job that was paying the car payment and the insurance that my parents required me to do. And I actually met a branch manager at Citibank down the street from the Bob Evans, and she seen my name and she recognized it because she knew my mother.
Okay.
And she asked me how long I had been working at Bob Evans. I said, well, I've been here for like about a year and a half. And she goes, well, have you ever tried, to get a job in banking or finance? I said, yeah, I've applied many times, but I always get the response back, I don't have enough experience. But I'm only 19, 20 years old. Of course, I don't have the experience.
Mm-hmm.
No one will give me the opportunity. And she said, okay, great. Say less, what's your email address? And back then I had an AOL email because I'm old. And she emailed me some information on Citibank's training program. I applied for the job. Sandy Minoyan was the person who was the branch manager, had an affinity for me from some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And she got me in the Citibank management training program in 1993 in Niagara Falls, New York. So that's how I started my journey in banking. And I actually started off as a proof operator, proofing checks by hand.
Yeah.
Is when you got into the program, and then you worked on the retail side of the house to eventually, at the time, get an opportunity on what we used to call the wholesale side, which is now referred to as business, commercial, middle market banking. Okay. So 1993, Niagara Falls, New York, Citibank. That's where I got my start.
Wow. And somebody helped you out because you were like, look, if I had ID, I wouldn't need ID. I'm applying, and you guys said I don't have the credentials. That's kind of how it always seems to be for us, but it was a relationship that got you there.
It was, and it was a relationship because the person, she recognized my name because she knew my mom. My mom had banked at that Citibank branch, I mean, since I was a kid, since I was like 7 or 8. Wow. And I remember when I got like 15, 16, I would go in and make deposits. But I'll be honest with you, I never thought to really apply, because when I walked into that branch, the first thing I noticed is there was no males. It was heavily female dominated, and there was no one of ethnicity. So I figured this ain't a place for me. So I'm gonna get a job where I could. But yeah, relationships are very important, and sometimes obtaining opportunities that you may not think are for you, or you're gonna have the opportunity to ever apply for and obtain.
Wow. Yeah, that's so much of what we're going to talk about theme wise is relationship. And part of it is just, you said you walked in, there wasn't people that looked like you. It was female dominated. So you just said, this is not a space for me. How many times does that happen in our world? Whereas if I don't see me, it must not be for me.
Right.
Sometimes it's just getting to the next step. So tell us, so you came into banking. This is before check 21. So you were proofing checks. So somebody could write a check back in the day, because I started in 2004. So I started a few years behind you. But back in the day, somebody could write a check in New York and it needed to go to California. and they would have a week to make a thing good. So they hopefully it was good, but a lot of times, man, people had their own sort of they had their own working capital because of the system.
Right, because back then, when someone walked in with a check deposit that was an out-of-state check, you thinking fraud. Like, what is this person up to? Like, why do they have an out-of-state check? Because you're thinking you all the way in Niagara Falls, New York. How you get a check from somebody in California? What are you doing out in California? Where now, I mean, to get a check that's local is kind of like, oh, you deal with somebody local?
Exactly.
Right. And we laugh now. So it's funny how, and then again in 1993, you're proofing a check by hand. You typing in the amount, you verifying it, you stamping it. It is like, it's not automated like it is now. But I will tell you, it taught me a couple things. When you worked in that proof department, it was you, your machine, and your other people who you worked with.
Wow.
Right. And you did it in the evening time at night. So it really helped me understand, partnering with people who you work with, kind of enjoying working with people. And it also helped you deal with people who had different personalities than you did. But going back to the point of, walking in somewhere and thinking in your mind, this isn't a place for me because I don't see this and I don't see that. I think that experience taught me that don't limit yourself. Just because you walk in a place and someone doesn't look like you, or you don't see people that look like you, or people you think you may not relate to, that doesn't mean there's not an opportunity for you, right? Because you may be stereotyping it in a way that is incorrect. So, take the risk, find out if it is for you. There's nothing venture, nothing gain, right? So it definitely taught me that.
You don't limit yourself. And at the same time, you said that it was you, your machine, and who you work with. It's still that. It's just the machine gives you capacity a lot further than it used to. So you're sitting in Houston now. Look, we could even, in 1993, we could do business together from Houston to Dallas, but we were going to be on a long distance phone call. We're going to have an email that, back then we didn't even read our emails like it was commonplace.
Not at all.
The reason business was so local was you didn't have the capacity for it to be in further. But now business can be global, but you're still working with maybe there's 5 to 10 people in your circle. It's just, they might touch China and Thailand, and it's crazy. So when you don't limit yourself, you say, all right, I could see there's more for me available because I may be connected to this person and they may present some information that I never would have considered, but I like that information they presented and now I want to learn more about it.
Absolutely.
So take that angle and tell me, as a commercial banker, as somebody who has clients across the spectrum from where they're from, the color of their skin, what specifically would you like African Americans to know more of or consider more of, or people of color, as it pertains to what it is you do on a daily basis?
Great question. I think there's a couple things. I think the first thing is, don't believe all the anecdotal talk that banks don't want to lend money to businesses of diversity. That is inaccurate. I think, when I worked at, for example, Chase, and I relocated here from Houston from Tampa, Florida in 2014. And I worked for Chase Bank, JP Morgan Chase, for about 5 years. And I would always, when I was encounter Black, African American, Hispanic owned business, they always say, well, I didn't think Chase wanted to do business with a company my size or of my ethnicity. And I said, well, why would you think that? Well, I just figured you always wanted to deal with bigger size companies. And I think a lot of times small to medium enterprises, which is defined, I think, by the IRS, with companies that have 5 million in revenue or less. I mean, companies with 1 to 30 million in revenue, I mean, that's the sweet spot and bread and butter of business, commercial banking, because banks can diversify their risk among a number of different clients in various industries and be more profitable. It's kind of like a client doesn't just do business with Walmart and says no to everybody else.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
you diversify the risk of having one client with larger clients and smaller ones. It's the same way in the banking segment. And I think, and the other thing I would tell you is that I think, especially with, companies of diversity, realize that I'm an advocate and a resource for your business, no matter what you think about the organization that I work for. Because let's be realistic. Banks provide the products and services for the client to execute, but the people do business with the relationship manager.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's
right?
get it.
They build the relationship with the relationship manager. That person is the advocate for your business. That person is the value added resource.
Yeah.
And if you have a solid relationship manager that understands how their organization and company operates and does business with companies in different industry and segments, that helps you be a more powerful resource for the client. So I think I want business owners to know I'm not the enemy.
You're the advocate.
I'm the advocate.
You're the subcontractor. So Frost Bank says, hey, we got these tools and facilities, but we need somebody to work them. Just like the government says, we got this money to send out and we can't do anything besides distribute the money. You have to execute it. So Frost is relying on Colin Davis and your peers and counterparts to go get the bag on their behalf and say, here's what we want to eat. You go find it. I got some people to help you cook it. And then let's make the meal.
Absolutely. Because I think clients have to realize Colin Davis doesn't work just for Frost Bank. I work for my clients.
Yes.
Because let's be realistic. Frost pays me, but the clients generate the revenue and the income that leads to my salary and benefits.
Absolutely.
So who should I really be working for the hardest? The bank or my clients?
The clients. And it's a hybrid relationship in the sense that you can't have too uneven on any one side because it's got to be a win-win. But the truth of the matter is Frost is giving you a balance sheet and an income statement to say, within our global balance sheet and income statement, this is what I have expectations of you. You bring your relationships.
Absolutely. Yes. The last time I checked, businesses bank with people and individuals, and they do that through a bank. Because obviously, relationship managers have clients that follow them from bank to bank. And as you know, some of us move like people change socks.
Yes.
All the time. So if they follow people from bank to bank, is it really about the institution or is it about the individual, which leads you to say, who is the relationship really with? I believe it's with the relationship manager. And as you said eloquently, the bank is the conduit to provide the products and the services for them to execute.
Absolutely. So tell us about, there's a component of banking that is, because it's so relationship driven, there's an appetite associated with it. So every bank is not built the same. Can you explain that in your own words and what the client should expect and how do they interview a bank to make sure it's the right fit?
Man, that's a great question because we talk often to business owners about interviewing their bank and understanding the structure of the bank when it comes to how they support business owners. Obviously, it starts with your branch team, your retail branch team, because they typically may see the business owner the most. So understanding how the branch level works, then as your company grows, understanding how business banking may work, commercial banking, then as your company grows, how middle market banking works. Because each, as a company grows, their access to capital needs change. Hopefully their balance sheet and profit and loss statement is increasing as well. And then depending on the strength of the balance sheet and the income statement will determine where you fit within the bank, what type of structures that they can offer you. So I think it's always important for a business owner, not just to understand, okay, I opened up an account. I have an account at this branch. I go to this branch and deposit money. Okay. What else do you know about that bank?
Yeah.
Right? What is their structure to support business owners? So I think understanding that structure and then really digging into what their appetite is depending on your industry. Some banks are struggling with oil field services companies. Well, being that Frost is a Texas-based bank, we haven't gotten out of the oil field services energy sector. Obviously, we're selective with who we can do business with, based on the ebbs and flows and the changes in the industry. But understanding that will prevent someone saying that, well, no, I'm in oil field services. No bank is lending any money to anybody in my space, because we hear that all the time.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily true at all. It just depends on how your company has navigated and operated during the ups and the downs. And the fact that you're still here during those downs, I think says a lot about your operations, the product and service you offer in the market, and how your clients feel about how you deliver that to them. So I think interviewing your bank is a significant piece that business owners don't often think about when they're choosing. I started my LLC. I'm in this industry, in this space. Now, who am I going to go to open up my account with? Oh, I'm going to go to Chase because there's one on every corner. But the way that they work with business owners, as you grow and how you develop a relationship, that may not be a good fit for you long term. Yeah. So why not determine that at the beginning, so you're not scrambling in the middle to find who's the right fit for you when you need it? Do that research on the front end. Take the time. It's important.
Absolutely. So I've got a two-part question for you. First is, your clients that have been with you for years, on average, how many banks do they have? That's the first component. And then your title has senior vice president. So what does that mean as compared to somebody's title that has AVP or banking officer in terms of expectations from a delivery standpoint?
Really good question. What was the first part of the question again? I'm sorry.
The first part of the question is, on average, how your clients that have been with you, let's say 3 years plus, how many banks do they carry?
Typically 2, primary and secondary bank.
Okay. And what's their rationale from your experience?
I think it's a couple things. I typically see that the secondary bank is the bank that they originally opened up an account with. Okay. Years ago. And they've always had it. They've always had that relationship is one scenario. The second scenario I've seen is the secondary bank just in case, right? I mean, I think I'll be honest with you, even though, you want to have the whole entire relationship, I would be lying if I told you I don't think it's smart and prudent for a business owner to have a primary banking relationship and have a secondary relationship with a bank who knows your business, understands your industry, understands your operating cycle, your cash conversion cycle, just like your primary bank. Because as we know in this industry, things change. So if for some reason your primary bank decided to exit the energy sector, but your secondary bank still had an appetite, you're not starting from ground zero with that secondary bank. You're starting kind of in the middle point. It's just a matter of, can they get comfortable becoming your primary bank at that point? So, I think when your clients have that secondary relationship, obviously I'm always talking to them about it. Would they be willing to move that over to me? Certainly understand if they don't in their rationale. But I think if you're consistently calling on them every 60, 90 days, and not just having those howdy doody calls, having those in-depth discussions about their performance year to date, where they're looking to go, some of the challenges that they're seeing, how they're offsetting those, and also what's going on in the banking industry and keeping them updated on those things. You never have to worry about that secondary becoming the primary unless something changes drastically at your current institution that you work with. Yeah, so the expectations from VP to senior VP, they're somewhat different, almost the same. I think for me, the senior VP title was important to me for the culture, for other young men and women of diversity who want an opportunity in the commercial banking, business banking, middle market space, to see someone who's worked hard, been successful, not just because of my own work and efforts, but because some great people were able to teach me and I was willing to learn from along the way, and the support of some great partners at other banks that I've gone at. But it was important for me, man, because I felt like I don't see very many senior vice presidents that are African-American males in the banking industry.
Absolutely.
And I believe that a lot of times we receive opportunities because other people have shown that we're worthy of the opportunity, which is unfortunate. But let's be real, man, it's unfortunate. But sometimes you got to, when you know your reality and you know the rules of the game, you just got to play in it.
Yeah.
And that's it. Right. So and I'll tell you, man, the Frost Bank and the SVP title will never have higher expectations of Colin Davis than I have of myself. Right.
There you go.
My parents always raised me to think and want to be a top performer and best in class. And when I don't achieve that, when I work at a company, I'm always asking myself, okay, what do I just need to do different to get there? You know, it's not a failure. It's an opportunity to look at your process, maybe mix it up a little bit and do a little bit things differently. But the expectations overall with the title advancements, I really think the expectation really comes more for me from within than it does for any company I've ever worked for. They give me a goal and I'm like, well, that's the goal, but that goal is only going to get me to X monetization to provide for my family, my 3 kids. So I need to exceed that, not just for my family, but I'm not going to lie to you. I always think about what can I do to advance opportunities for other people who are in front of me, behind me, close to me. How can I show that we deserve the opportunities in this space as well? And that's just as important as providing for my family.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I appreciate the humility. It's necessary when you're engaging with people, but I want to give the audience some context. So when I asked the title, first off, we're not just being handed that title. There's a lot of expectation when you get to SVP. It means that you have experience in the space and you've performed. As you know, when we're the few, we got to be the top. There's no options. Us being, if you look at it in anything, there's 4 quartiles. Us being in quartile 3 is truly unacceptable. Our peers at times can hang around in quartile 3 for a career and get that title and have some good, solid performance. We don't have that option. If you see an African-American, a person of color, a female in a commercial middle market space with an SVP title, they have receipts. And to further back that up, I used to work at Truist Bank and had an opportunity through our affinity groups to find out some numbers on that. And so at Truist, our numbers was less than 4% of the pool of African Americans that were employed at Truist had the title of SVP and beyond. So, like you said, being for the culture, it truly showed that, hey, I can be there. There's opportunity for me, even though those opportunities come with that same moniker that we have to be twice as hard to get half the results. The truth of the matter is, we still have the opportunity to create the opportunity, even though it's more challenging. And at times, it honestly just makes us stronger. It makes us more resilient as a result of having to go through tougher obstacles to get there.
Yeah, and you're right, man. To get to that title and that level, you definitely have to have experience. You definitely have to have receipts. You can't just talk the talk. You have to have a proven track record. And I know when I was coming over here to Frost, the HR person asked me, she said, you really didn't say much about the salary, but she goes, I can really tell the SVP title was what was most important to you. And I said, absolutely. And I explained to her exactly why, because I used to work for SunTrust in Tampa, Florida for 7 years. That's now part of Truist with the BB&T acquisition. And when I came over to SunTrust, I wanted an SVP title because I was coming from a bank where I had an SVP title. And, they just gave me the VP title, and it was a great opportunity, so I couldn't turn it down. But I always said when I had my next opportunity to negotiate that, that I was going to stand firm and stand strong, because a lot of people look at it and think, oh, no big deal. But listen, when you a black kid from Niagara Falls, Buffalo, New York, that's economically depressed, where you've seen all the industry leave, and you had to leave, not because I wanted to leave upstate New York, but because there wasn't going to be opportunities to advance my career. You know, when you look back and you see that accomplishment on your business card, I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. It means a lot to me, right? Because it's, it was a lot of hard work and an effort, and a lot of no's along the ways, a lot of, man, we're not sure if you can go from the retail side of the bank to the commercial side of the bank.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm an accounting and finance major. I know how to read balance sheet and income statements and how to do ratios and what they mean. And I have a great personality. Just give me the opportunity. And
absolutely,
I was at Citibank for like 2 or 3 years before I was able to finally get my shot on the business banking side. And that was in 95. And I've been on this side ever since. But no lie, man, it has been a struggle. I have seen people that I said, man, how did he get that opportunity? And I'm like, man, I'm never even considered or even asked to sit at the table or even invited to the restaurant. Right. And I'm not hating on nobody else, but when you know your skill set and your experience, it does make you wonder, man, like, why am I not getting those considerations? So.
Absolutely. We all have at our age, we have examples, peers that are all EVP and above. They're leading teams, regional presidents. And you're like, it's not that I'm hating it. Some of them are excellent bankers as well, but like, I'm just as good or better. And I didn't get that opportunity. What I would say is, this is me trying to play devil's advocate, because I just, the rest of my life, I'm going to live pro-black, because I want to build our family up. And if my family is in need, I feel like I should be the one, or we should be part of the ones to help aid our family, not asking outside to do so. Right. But I say this: if the way the world is currently structured, where wealth resides, I could see why a white EVP, a white regional president, commercial director would say, can the black person do it? Because he's got to build relationships with all these wealthy white business owners. In their mind, that's all there is. So they're like, you're going to have to overcome something that even outside of your skill set may be outside of the realm of your capacity to overcome, because of the way people's mindset. So they believe, oftentimes, they believe one another is more racist than one another may in fact be.
Right.
I'm not racist, but I know my brother over here probably is. So how is Colin going to get that client to bring business over to Frost? And therefore, instead of having Colin be the EVP and the director, let's have him do X, Y, Z.
Well, listen, I'm gonna be honest. When I first came to Houston, and I got hired at Chase, I was originally supposed to interview off of Gessner. I didn't know what Gessner was. I didn't know nothing about Gessner, really, Houston that much.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, they switched my interview to the Woodlands. But I did read up on the Woodlands, and I was like, okay, dang, this is definitely qualified candidate, good skill set, but diversity higher as well to get your numbers up. So I'll be honest with you, I had to work in Conroe, Willis, Magnolia, the Woodlands, and I encountered people in meetings that called me boy. And I'll be honest, where I'm from, upstate New York, people use the term boy if they your friend, and it's a term of endearment. That's my boy. What's up, my guy? Oh man, that's my boy. When you ain't my friend, I'm not sure how you really mean it. Right?
Yeah.
So, but I learned that in banking, money is all green at a different rate of return. And once you sit down and you have the conversation, I turned a lot of those people who called me boy into clients that became advocates for Colin Davis.
Yes.
Because I didn't close my mind and say, man, I'm not going to deal with this person because they use the word boy and I think they're racist and prejudiced. I don't know if you racist and prejudiced yet because you ain't invited me to your house to really find out, right?
Yeah.
But you realize some of those people do use certain terms because they have a high level of unawareness. Not because they mean anything by it, but once you show them your skill set and what you bring to the table, and that's undeniable, and they look and say, yeah, this dude's pretty sharp and knows what he's doing, those barriers go down because they're like, I got to judge this based on, can this guy help me get to the bag, not some of the biases that I have in my mindset based on what he looked like or what I seen on TV and think what he looks like. So, if I had to be concerned with that, man, or worried about that, I definitely would not work in this industry because there are people you can definitely tell, like you walk in and they're like, oh, you're Colin Davis?
Oh, so your name kind of messes it up. You could get to the finish line and like, oh, Obi Chukwuma's a little different.
Right. So it definitely has gotten me in the door because people, they ain't Colin M. Davis. You don't know Colin, right? That's a British European name. I don't know where I know where my mother got the name from, but she's like, I liked it and I gave it to you. And I used to hate it growing up, but then when I got into the workforce, I started realizing I'm always getting callbacks or getting people. I was like, then I started realizing,
Tell me, everything you said is the absolute gospel, and I would even take it further that they're proud of themselves when they overcome. Like, yeah, when I first met him, I didn't think he had a damn chance, and now he's like, that's my guy.
Yeah. Yes.
I will say, that's a lot of work, Colin. That's some exhausting work at times.
You know what, man? It can be, but I think you have to know those people. Listen, people have to see, and you have to be able to articulate your value proposition to people, and you have to be willing to be transparent and honest with them and tell them the type of people you want to work with. Just like you talked about businesses interviewing banks. Oh, I interview customers as well because I get to choose who I want to add to my portfolio. And if you don't look at me as a person, listen, for Frost, I'm a relationship manager that provides solutions that help companies run effectively and efficiently short-term and long-term. But for my clients, I'm an advocate and a resource, meaning that because I do business development, if you need a new CPA because you've outgrown your CPA, you don't need to go on Google, call Colin. If you need an architect firm to help you do plans and specs related to this piece of property you're going to look to build, you don't have to look for that, call me. So if people don't see the value that I bring to the table within the space that I work banking, and also the value I can bring to their business outside of that space with my network. And then the most important thing, if I'm in business development and I know what your company does and how you operate and the type of clients that you work with, I become your best source for business that you don't pay a salary and benefits to. Right? Facts.
Yes.
Right? Meaning I can refer you people to do business with your company. If you don't see my value in that, and you want to treat me like I'm just a commodity transaction, I don't want to onboard you in my portfolio.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're never going to refer me anybody.
Yeah. And
you're not going to become an advocate.
What people don't understand, the banker, I wouldn't say we're martyrs. You can make good money in this career. The person in your position is making well over six figures, but the value you provide, if you were doing this independently, you would charge for your services well above $1 million a year in value. For, like, let's say the exact same thing you just described. If I put you on a CPA that saves you $100,000, because that's the kind of numbers people are in the space that we play, there's value to that. On the outside world, that'd be a referral fee. But you're getting this for free because because Frost is saying, I'm paying you for this time, so you bring me dividends and these type of customers, right? The challenge
Right.
we have or we don't recognize is that people, because you're not bound by Reg B because of the size. And to our audience, remember, Reg B stipulates what questions you can ask during the application process, so we're not discriminating to any group of people. And it also has a clip if the revenue is below $2 million, if the income is below $1 million, I apologize, if the loan need is below $1 million, we have to take the application the same way we would take a personal application. That's not
Absolutely.
what Colin plays. Colin's clients, that title SVP says goals are here. He doesn't play with the businesses that have revenue below 2 million. He doesn't play with the loan needs most often below $1 million. So when he says he can choose his client, he absolutely can say, if you don't value the acumen that I bring, we don't have to do business with together.
Yeah, and that's not being arrogant or stuck up, but in this space, when you have to manage a portfolio of clients and interact with them and deal with them, you want to deal with people who you do like somewhat. Mm-hmm. You may not always get along, but I like working with you. It's enjoyable. It's fun. We have difficult conversations, but we get through them like any relationship. But you don't want to onboard people that you're like, wow, every time I talk to this person, it's like I'm fighting with them. I have to help them understand that, you agreed to provide me that financial information on a quarterly basis, right?
Yes.
So you just, so I try to do a good job at really setting expectations with business owners on the front end. And it's not just about what Frost expects. It's about what Colin Davis expects as well. And if we can't meet each other's expectations, that doesn't make me a bad RM or you a bad business owner. That just means we probably can't do business together.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Absolutely.
That's simple.
Colin, what's the size of your portfolio and the demographics?
So in my space, I'm primarily going to work with clients that probably have annual revenues, $10 million and up. Mm-hmm. And typically that leads to them, on the depository side, they can have average balances from high 6 figures to very high 7 figures. In terms of access to capital, typically their loan needs are $1 million and above in most situations. You do get those clients that may have a need that's less than that, but typically their total debt exposure is above $1 million. So, privately held, locally owned companies here in the Houston, Harris County, MSA, and all the other counties that we touch, that understand the value that Frost Bank and Colin Davis can bring to the table, and understand that a relationship is about give and take. It's about good and bad. And more than anything, it's about effective compromise to get to the end result that we all would like to get to. Absolutely. And we focus on all industries. We don't, obviously banks have their industries that they really like, but we don't shy away from any type of industry. Obviously we're smart enough to know that, I can't get certain things done in certain industries. Obviously things related to smoke shops, pornography, you're not in that space. Yeah. But I was really surprised that, where in Texas, banks will do gun ranges and gun shops. But in other states like Florida, because of reputational risk, we won't do gun ranges and gun shops. But in Texas, you will. So, I've had the chance to work from, Buffalo, New York to, 3 cities in Florida and now Houston, Texas. So, you learn a lot because every state has different industries. I never worked in the energy segment before I moved to Houston. So I've learned a lot in the oil field service and energy space in the 8 years that I've been here. But we're just looking to work with sound, solid business owners that want to do business with a bank and a relationship manager like myself that does everything with character and integrity and does it for I'm a big believer because of where I come from. I have the opportunity to operate in a space where I can impact a business the owner, the owner's family, the employees, and the employee's family, which means what I do helps to build community, right? And community is important to me because I had to leave and take my show on the road from the community that I grew up in, that I love. So I'm never, like you said, I make good money. I'm not going to get the golden parachute doing this job, to be honest with you. But I think I do get a lot of satisfaction in seeing that business owner that started at 5 million in revenue, grew to 20 million in revenue, and you get to see his kids graduate from college, get married, and have their own kids. There's personal satisfaction in that the 2-week paycheck can't measure, right? And, you know, building community is important to me because I didn't have the chance to build a community where I'm from, but I'm hoping to change that one day.
There you go. There you go. So you're a transplant. I had one of the questions I had down for you is who's the best Houston rapper? But you've been in Houston for 8 years, so you've been exposed.
No, I can already answer that.
Okay.
I'm from up north, but we know, man. Listen, I will say this by saying I think number of talented rappers from here, but I think the greatest Houston rapper of all time for me is Scarface.
There you go. There you go. Face Mob.
Face Mob, man. I mean, people think because I'm from upstate New York, like, oh, you didn't vibe with the Southern rappers. Like, nah, we vibe with Face Mob and Trick Daddy for a long time.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. But Face, man, I got to give it to him, man. I think that's the greatest Houston rapper, man, and influential in music just in general.
Absolutely. I mean,
icon in the game.
Yes. Lyrical, like he's, to me, I did this list because at the barbershop, you're going to have all type, this argument comes up time and time again. So I did this list of best rappers, and the criteria, there was like 7 different pieces of criteria. And so I just did by criteria, and then you put the names in. Face was up there, and he was in my top 5 for sure. It's so good. I saw him in concert like 2 weeks ago too.
Yeah, he was in concert a couple weeks. I've had the chance to see him in concert, man. He's an icon. He's definitely in my top 10. You know, for me, and I base that off a lot. You know, content is important, message, and the impact. And I think people don't discount what was his impact on the community that he came from. Where he lived, where he served. And, getting here to Houston, you see the impact that he's had, just like, you see the impact that Bun B has. I mean, if Face is number 1, that's my number 2 in Houston. Right? UGK.
UGK, Port Arthur. They might as well be Houston.
Yeah, right. Port Arthur, But his impact that he continues to have on the community, I think is important when you look at people and how we look at in terms of, are they the best in class in their genre and what they do in their industry? How are they impacting the community as well? And they both do a great job.
They do. Colin, I appreciate your time. I know your time is very valuable to you. The information that you shared is priceless. I know you do this on a regular basis, but I just want to have a platform where our people that don't get to see this every day get to understand how this thing works, and they don't have to say, that's not for me because I don't see myself, because we're there. We're there. You just dream it, make it happen, and you make the connections and networks, and that's what we're out here to do. So thank you for helping us do such.
Well, listen, I'm humbled and honored to have the time, always willing to share my experiences and knowledge that I have, because obviously, like I said before, I've gotten to this point not just because of Colin Davis. Family, friends, co-workers, partners have all helped in my personal and professional development. So meeting someone like you and having the opportunity to talk about it and hopefully make a difference, with other kids and young people who are looking to come up in a banking career. And I'll leave you with this. Frost Bank is still one of the few banks that offers formal credit training through our Frost University and our associate relationship management program. So I would tell all you college students who go to historically black colleges in any school, go to Frost Bank, go to our website, learn more about our associate relationship manager program, because it's that program, Obi, that sends you to school for 6 months and trains you, then makes you a portfolio manager and helps you understand credit underwriting and structure, and then starts challenging you to start becoming a relationship manager. Not too many banks still offer that in this space. I know Amity does, Frost does. Not many banks offer that formal credit training. And as you know, when you get hired in this industry, they ask that, are you formally credit trained? You're like, well, banks have stopped doing that like in the late 90s.
Yeah.
Luckily, I got RMA formally credit trained at Citibank and have my certificate that I can put it on the resume. So I would tell people Frost is, it's really a great organization. I've been here for 7 months. I'm glad I made the switch, but definitely go to our website, learn more about our associate relationship manager program that can help you make that transition from college to the business banking side of the world, but teaches you the progression and the things that you have to learn to be a solid relationship manager, not just from a business development standpoint, but also from a credit underwriting standpoint as well.
Absolutely. You got to be able to sell the business on your behalf, and you sell it with that information and that know-how.
Absolutely. Appreciate the time, brother.
Thank you, sir. Obi Chikuma, Space and Equity, we're all about increasing assets and creating new space. Like us and subscribe on our YouTube channel, Come Correct Podcast. You can type in Chikuma or Space and Equity, that'll show up. Also follow us on IG, Obi_empowers. Follow us at Space Equity Corp. When you come correct, they can't stop you. Colin, we appreciate your time, man.
Appreciate you too. Thank you so much. Have a good upcoming weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.